What is the best weapon in Tears of the Kingdom? Well, with all 118 weapons in the game, it's kinda hard to know which ones are definitively the best, so that's why I chose to go through and rank every single unfused weapon. I based this on each weapon's usefulness and versatility, so if you just hate me after this video, please leave a comment about it. Now, starting with tier doo-doo. The weapons that make up this tier are so bad that they don't even make it into F tier. I mean, they are better than nothing, but not better than anything else, simply just better than having no weapon. Oh wait, never mind. Some of these are even pretty weak in the early game, so they shouldn't have even made it into the game at all. On that note, the worst weapon in Tears of the Kingdom is the Master Sword. Decayed, of course. This thing has no use other than cutting a couple vines. Story-wise, this weapon is S tier, but based off of usefulness and how easy it is to reattain, this thing is as bad as they come. After this, we have the Sky Island stick variant. Not the normal base game version, that one has a special rank for a very important reason. Next, we have the whole Decayed Traveler set. When I say Traveler, I mean the full arsenal of weapons that fall under that family. And just because it's so bad, the Traveler Spear Pristine version is also in this tier because it only does a full 4 damage. Then we have all the stick weapons. While they are extra durable, once you get off the Great Sky Island, you aren't going to be picking one of these up again unless you want to give yourself a challenge. After that, we have the Rusty Weapon family. Not much explanation is needed for these weapons. We also have the Decayed Boomerang and all utility weapons like the Pitchfork, Harpoon, Hoe, Soup Ladle, and the Mop. Oh, and the Ore. These are the only weapons that I could see someone using if they wanted to just, complete an outfit or something. And finally, finishing out tier doo-doo, we have the Decayed Throwing Spear. Now, moving on to tier F. We are met here with a bunch of weapons that also really suck, just not as much. But when I say not as much as doo-doo tier, I don't mean that they are good in any stretch of the imagination, just to clear up any confusion you might have. And also, when a weapon is placed into a tier, there's no ranking beyond that. Now, starting out F tier, we have the Gnarled Thick Stick weapon family. I know, I said that all sticks were included in the doo-doo tier, but these are Gnarled Thick Sticks, not your average run-of-the-mill sticks. After that, we have the Traveler Sword and Claymore, as the spear was left behind for being so trash. There's also the Soldier Spear in here just because of my beef with low damage spears. I swear I don't hate spears, just the ones that deal as much damage as a Summer Wing Butterfly. Then we have the Boomerang, Pristine version, and the Lizzle Boomerang, which both deal 8 damage. And the base level Zonite Sword, Longsword, and Spear. These are only really good early game, and they rely heavily on the use of a Zonite fuse to reach their true potential. We also have the Deteriorated Soldiers, Knights, Rito, and Sheikah gear. These weapons finish out this tier and just aren't there in durability or attack power, but their bonuses stop them from being complete trash, so they actually earn their spot in F tier alongside the proud Gnarled Thick Sticks. Oh, there's also the Throwing Spear. I know, you've forgotten about this weapon too, but it's useful for one thing, throwing it out of your inventory as far as you can. Now moving up a bit in use and versatility, we have D tier. These weapons still aren't very good, but can be brought into mid-game without much of an issue, and can be good for when you have a needed fuse that you don't want to waste on a better weapon, but you still want to be able to do just a little bit of damage. Starting out this tier, we have the first 2 legendary weapons, the Sea Breeze Boomerang and the Sword of the Hero, by far the worst out of the rest of the legendary lineup. Then the Rito Sword and Spear. Mom, can we have Korok Leaf? No, we have Korok Leaf at home. As well as the Soldier's Broadsword and Claymore. Continuing with the theme of separating weak spears from the rest of the weapon family, the Knight Spear is also down here in D tier. This is the last time I'm going to be doing this. Well, maybe. No promises. Also down here by itself is the Bokoblin Arm. Not much to say here, it's the Bokoblin Arm. Moving on, we have the Decayed Gobble Crusher. This thing is useful for breaking large amounts of rocks. But that's only after you've forgotten that every single weapon in the game can do the same with arguably the most commonly used fuse. Next, we have the Pristine Zora weapons. These have a low attack value and the Water Warrior perk is kinda niche. And yes, I know that you can use Sidon to give you a water shield and proc the status effect, but come on. Also down here in D tier, we have the Decayed Gerudo set. The fuse perk is great, but sadly the durability isn't really there as with most weapons in this tier. And finally, we have the 8-fold blade. It does 15 damage, and if you actually want to get any use out of improved sneak strike, then you're gonna use the... oh wait, never mind. The long blade doesn't have improved sneak strike even though it has the exact same name, and I guess I'll just place the 8-fold blade in between D and C and you can make the decision for yourself. C tier. These weapons are alright. Nothing in this tier is really all that bad, but not completely outstanding either, just mid. Having said that, let me introduce you to the torch. Now, some of you are probably scratching your heads wondering why I would place the torch so high up on this list when it's literally tied for the lowest damage in the game. And I have one word for you: utility. Yep, that's right, this glorified stick places all the way up here just because it has so many different uses. Next, we have the strong Zonite weapons, and this time I didn't split them up, they're all here. The Decayed Forest Dweller's gear is also here because Infinite Puffshrooms and Dazzle Fruits are pretty useful even if they have low durability. Moblin and Lizalfos arms rank 1 tier higher than the Bokoblin arm just because the Moblin arm deals more damage and the Lizzle arm is a boomerang, the most fun weapon type in the game, and no, there's no room for negotiation on that, it's a fact. The Decayed Royal family is pretty good, not the best. The perks on these weapons completely carries both the Royal Guard and the Royal set. The Decayed Royal Guard sword and halberd are also here, and this is basically going to be the last you see of any Decayed weapons, except maybe 1 or 2 going forward into B tier. You like what I did there? Smooth, wasn't it? B is where you're going to find all of the good weapons, but not the greatest or the best. These weapons really pack a punch and you can't go wrong with any of them, especially the giant boomerang. If it were up to me, well, it already is, but if I could be even more biased than I already am, then I would place the giant boomerang as the best weapon in the entire game. Just look at it. Need I say more? Actually, I will. This boomerang, while not having its original sound, still solos the rest of the roster in just how much fun it is to use, especially when it comes to large groups of enemies. And when you fuse this thing, it gets even wilder. This has been and always will be my favorite weapon, hands down. Anyways, the Magic Rod Staff. Pretty cool and useful. The Pristine Royal Guard's sword and halberd, as well as the Decayed Royal Guard's claymore. Yes, the Decayed version, and only because of the trick that you can do when you get it down to low durability and use it mounted on a Lionel. I know, it sounds very specific, but it's actually really useful, especially if you suck at combat. Use Sidon to give you a water shield and proc the status effect, but come on, you know what rhymes with B? Gerudo. And the full weapon family is right here. They've all got the very useful strong fusion perk, doubling their attack power once fused, making these weapons capable of some really potent damage. The definition of redundant: Pristine Cobble Crusher. A stronger, more durable weapon of its useless younger brother. Oh shoot, I literally just described how pristine weapons worked and tried to pass it off as dialogue in my video. I gotta remember to cut this part out. I wonder what would happen if I put a rock on the end of this thing. The Pristine Forest Dweller set, Infinite Muddle Buds, but even more. And of course the 8-fold long blade with its edgy cousin. Just kidding, the Gloom Sword is the first weapon in A tier, which stands for awesome because these weapons are pretty cool. The best, well, basically. These are the weapons that you're going to want to use late to endgame, starting with the White Sword of the Sky, which deals 24 damage. I know, that sounds stupid, but this thing has crazy durability and an unfused lifetime damage of over 1,000, making it one of the best choices for a one-handed fused weapon, as long as you don't mind making it look a lot worse. The mighty Zonite sword, longsword, and spear are pretty mighty and can pack a punch when you add higher tier parts from Zonite constructs. I originally had the Earthquake manual in S tier and then used my 2 collective brain cells and realized that it definitely isn't worth that tier, but fits pretty well into A tier cause while it doesn't do a lot of damage, you have infinite access to it whenever you want and it can stun enemies or throw them. It will also track them, so if you're someone who always has to use key size to hit anything, this ability is perfect for you. Next is the Gloom Spear. It has good durability, but its perk, more like a curse, deals damage to you when you use it, and for a spear that's going to add up really quickly. The Gloom Club, dealing 50 damage a hit, makes it the highest damage dealing unfused weapon in the game, but it loses its spot in S tier because of its horrible durability along with the rest of its weapon family. The next 2 legendary weapons are the Sword of the Sages, a great all-rounder, and the Fierce Deity's Sword. Following right after, we have the Pristine Royal family. The double damage while in a Flurry Rush perk is absolutely amazing in late game when combat mostly becomes an endless string of Flurry Rushes until you kill your opponent. On a side note, the Royal Halberd actually has one of the highest durability stats in the game, making it extremely reliable, especially when we have fuses. And all by itself is the Royal Guard's Claymore for the same reason the decayed version is placed in B tier. Honestly, I should have placed them both in the same tier because they serve almost the exact same purpose, but that would make you realize how scuffed this list is if you haven't already. And closing out A tier, we have the Magic Scepter and the other magic weapon, I forgot what it's called. They're pretty cooler and usefuler. S tier, the best of the best. These 6 weapons embody what it means to be S tier, and if you've watched the whole video instead of just skipping through to this part, then you're an S tier person. And I know I said that the placement of the weapons within these tiers don't matter, but it does now. So starting us off at 7th place on our journey through the Hall of Fame, we have the Boulder Breaker. I know, I dog on the perk of these types of weapons, but that's not the reason it ranks so high. It actually has a very good durability stat coming in at 40 and deals a very good 38 damage. Now, you might think that because the Fierce Deity Sword also deals 38 damage, that constitutes a tie of some sort, but sadly the beloved Double Helix Sword has worse durability by 5 points. Next, at 6th place, we have the Dusk Claymore. This thing not only looks amazing, but has amazing durability. While it only has 34 damage, it has 50 durability, making it the 4th highest durability weapon in the game. Coming in at 5th place, we have the Big Goron Sword. It deals 36 damage, which is 2 less than the Boulder Breaker, but has the 2nd best durability in the game at 60, giving it an unfused lifetime damage of 2,160, the highest in the game by far. But that's without a fuse, and with a hilt like that, the Occerina of Time designers knew exactly what they were doing when they made this the perfect weapon for aesthetically pleasing fuses. The Light Scale Trident completely caught me by surprise when I saw that this thing had 70 durability. And with the emphasis on Flurry Rush combat in the late game, spears with a powerful fuse are one of the best ways to deal extremely high burst damage. And you know my standing on the Water Warrior perk, but when you combine this with the fact that Flurry Rushes with a spear hit up to 11 times, then you can see why I placed this thing where I did. Now, there are only 3 weapons moving forward that outclass this type of firepower, and it starts with the Scimitar of the 7. 28 base damage and a respectable durability stat of 50 places this weapon at A tier at best, but the strong fusion perk is what makes it a hot knife cutting through butter when it comes to enemies' health. Slap a silver Lionel horn on this thing and you have one of the, if not the best, no-nonsense damage dealers. Taking up 2nd place is the legendary Master Sword. It has infinite durability if you're patient enough, which means it technically has more lifetime damage than any other weapon on this list combined. And when fighting near gloom enemies, the Master Sword will also crit every single time, dealing double damage. And while this doesn't influence the ranking, it also just looks incredible when fused with anything. I could say more, but I think we all agree that it deserves such a high spot on this list. And finally, the number 1 weapon in Tears of the Kingdom, better than anything else by far, is the stick. No questions. Type stick in the comments if you made it this far, subscribe, and check out this video about what to do when you're bored in Tears of the Kingdom, because I know half of you are.